Hi everyone, welcome to Bike Winnipeg's first YouTube live event. Today we're talking about winter cycling with some very special guests. Silly question for you, but can you tell us how long you've been winter cycling?
Well, I don't like to talk winter cycling or like winter anything words because nobody talks about winter walking or winter driving or winter flying or whatever. So for me, it's just cycling, which just happens in all possible seasons.
I
And
love it.
well, it's never even occurred to me that one would not cycle in winter. It's one of the seasons, and you just dress appropriately, and that's it.
So I started bike commuting, I guess probably more than 20 years ago, just because I got tired of sitting in my crappy minivan in traffic, and I just loved every second of it. And then when winter came around, I just was really reluctant to put my bike away because I loved it, and just tried to keep it going. And one of the reasons I wrote Frostbike is because I was looking for resources to help me, and I felt like there wasn't a lot available at the time. So I thought, well, let's document my journey. And the fundamental question was, is riding your bike through a Canadian winter for transportation a viable thing to do, or is it just for crazy people? And the spoiler alert is like, here I am, 15, 20 years later, still riding through winter, and riding some of those commutes home in the snow are some of my favorite rides these days. So it's absolutely viable, and we're seeing more and more people doing it all the time.
It was really moving to Montreal in 2019 and just seeing that winter cycling was something that people did. Because before that, we were in Toronto for a few years, and I guess like if there's no snow on the ground, you wouldn't think anything of it. But beyond that, it just wasn't something that was really in our consciousness as a thing that people could do. So living here kind of opened our mind to that, just seeing how many people kept biking through winter. So yeah, it was gradual over the winters of being in Montreal. Although we were in Ottawa for a year and a half in the middle, and that was a bit more challenging. With they didn't have as much. They didn't do as good of a job clearing the bike routes as Montreal.
Right.
We kind of got into winter cycling together, but definitely just moving to Montreal and seeing how many people did cycle through the winter, continued to cycle, even when it started snowing, was a big kind of inspiration. And then it became sort of a challenge, like, oh, well, I guess we should try doing it. And then kind of the more you try it and research and stuff, you realize that there's like better and safer ways to do it. And yeah, it becomes kind of a bit of a fun challenge and way to stay outside in the winter.
I started winter cycling in university. I was working at Mountain Equipment Co-op, and lots of my coworkers there were winter cycling already. It was something I had thought about, but it hadn't been a priority just because at that point I was busing most of the time in the winter. But it definitely, between the Bike Winnipeg folks and the Mountain Equipment Co-op folks, I was convinced. I got a pair of studded tires, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, so I started winter cycling because I moved out into my first apartment and I was working as a daycare teacher, and I wasn't making a lot of money, and after a while I realized that I could just ride my bike to work instead of paying the $80 for a bike pass. I could just keep riding my bike right through the winter. So that was kind of how I got started, and yeah, I've been just doing it since then. I think part of it is just that I like riding my bike a lot, and then the other half is that it's just a great way to save money and also get some exercise and fresh air.
Great. How long
Anyway, it's a priority. So first of all, we need to have infrastructure that is winter proof, so that the infrastructure that you have in the, let's say, dry months is also usable and most of all maintainable in the winter time. So it's easy and effective to maintain. In our snowy conditions, we need big machinery to be able to move those huge quantities of snow and ice. So our infrastructure must also fit them. And naturally, our priority network, which is not only in the city, but it's regional, has a 24/7 maintenance with really strict limits, really strict quality criteria. That is, if there's 2 centimeters of new snowfall, it needs to be gone within 3 hours, and 4 centimeters must never be reached, even for a second. In addition to that, we measure user satisfaction, customer satisfaction, because winter maintenance is first of all, it's a customer service job, and you need to understand that. And depending on customer satisfaction, how satisfied people who are using our bicycle infrastructure, also those who are walking, based on their satisfaction, the contractors responsible for winter maintenance get either bonuses or sanctions. Also, they themselves, the very tractor drivers who are maintaining the cycle paths, must also cycle on the very same paths that they are maintaining to understand what they are truly doing. Because you need to know your product that you are selling to customers. There's a couple of seconds of bragging for you.
That's great. I also see that your paths are nice and wide, so you don't need special equipment, it looks like.
No, not at all. So, for example, the bike I'm riding here, this one is from 1941. It's a single speed upright granny bike, a normal feet, if you will, with nothing special on it. So my winter cycling equipment would be front and rear lights. That's it. Because in the summertime, naturally, in our latitude, you don't need lights at all. So you only need them in the winter.
I found it better to get a winter bike here because I destroyed a beloved summer bike because there's so much salt used on the roads here. But I think if you're in Oulu, where they do a better job maintaining the pathways and the maintenance is better, they don't need to use that much salt. If you're riding on snow instead of like, slushy bits of snert, then yeah, it can be really hard on your bike. So yeah, because of where I live, I use a different winter bike. But it does depend on where you are, I think.
For you, I know that working at the Wrench, you have
Yeah,
access
and
to some good,
yeah.
some good access to some used bikes there. You guys have the bike forest with hundreds and hundreds of bikes, and I know that people come to you for their winter junkers, right?
Yes. Yeah, we kind of have a template for the kind of winter bike that we sell a lot of, and that we have sort of found is kind of a bike that fits the needs of most winter cyclists. And we've sort of narrowed it down to an older, rigid mountain bike, so like no suspension. And we look for the ability to put on studded tires. And we usually set it up as a single speed or just with gears in the back. And we also try to make sure there's room for fenders to keep you and your bike a bit cleaner and drier. And we find that that kind of is the bike that works for a lot of people, and it can make winter cycling much more approachable than feeling like you have to pay for a fat bike or worrying that your nice summer bike is going to get rusted out from riding all winter.
Yeah, so I was just about to say that if you just have the options, if you have the possibility, if you have the budget, go with anything that's comfortable, that you like to ride. That should be, in my opinion, if you just can, should be the most important thing. So when you like to ride, when you like your bike, when the bike that you have feels comfortable for you, that's when you will also use it.
This is probably a little out of left field, but how we started out biking in the winter was with folding bikes, because I mentioned earlier the problem of
Oh,
cleaning and maintenance. So we got folding bikes, budget folding bikes that are basically easier to fold up and clean inside, because we don't leave our bikes outside. The tires are smaller, which might theoretically be a problem, but it seems to have, like, they seem to work fine for our needs.
It's a great way of getting around the city. Like, I think we sort of make it out to be harder than it is. So on one level, it's just like it's a very practical way of getting around, just like it is in the summertime. So, but I also say it changed my relationship to winter. I think as Canadians, we like to think we're winter people, but we actually, a lot of us do whatever we can to avoid winter. We complain about it all the time. We go from our heated house to our heated car to our heated office, and we walk through pedways or plus 15s through downtown, avoiding the winter. And so we develop a fear and a hatred of winter. But for me, getting out in the winter and just getting to work through it, made me realize it's not that bad. Like, it's not as long as I used to think it is. It's not as cold as I thought it was. Dealing with it is not as difficult as I once thought it was. And so I actually really, I've really loved winter now. There's lots of things to love about it. So I don't know if I would have realized that without riding my bike through it.
I think the biggest surprise for me was realizing just how much variation there is in winter. So, for example, I distinctly remember the coldest time of the year last year when we were in Montreal. It was, I don't know, like minus 33 with a wind chill of minus 40 something. And it was extremely uncomfortable. And that's what stands out in your mind when you remember winter. Like, that's the biggest memory I have of last winter. But the vast majority of days were not like that at all. And even though we do have those days where it can be difficult to bike or even walk, like walking outside in that winter, in that weather was quite difficult. Like, most of the days are just normal, -5, -10. We're entirely used to it. It's pleasant. It's a little chilly. It's not too bad. Yeah, it's the variation that I didn't realize until I started paying attention to the conditions.
It was more invigorating than I expected. I think I expected it to be like a challenge and something you could say like, "Oh, I'm happy that I did that. I'm proud I did that." But I think like when you're riding and like you're actually enjoying yourself and it's cold, and you come home and it's like, yeah, you feel like refreshed, invigorated, and it's kind of a good way to embrace the winter more. I'm not really someone who has like a strong or who didn't have a strong like winter sport that I would do consistently. So it's nice to be able to just continue cycling to kind of keep some kind of sport throughout the winter too.
I think a few people have mentioned in the comments already, but the way that winter cycling is so quiet compared to summer cycling, even the cars are quieter, which is really lovely. I also find that drivers tend to be kinder in the winter because they think we're all bonkers and they give you way more space. So that's nice. It's not actually that hard to dress for it because I'm honestly more likely to be too warm in the winter than I am too cold. Because once you get moving, it's a decent amount of work in the winter. So it's pretty easy to keep your body temperature up.
I think, or I've noticed that it's always faster than the bus. Even on the days where traffic is so backed up, you will usually get home faster than you would if you were taking the bus. And I've also discovered the joy of making myself a nice thermos of hot coffee before I go for a ride or before I commute. So when I get into work or wherever I'm going, I have this hot drink that is usually cooled down to the perfect drinking temperature.
That's great.
Get on your bike and try riding.
Okay.
Like just put on the clothes you'd wear to go outside and give it a try. That's how I started, and eventually you will figure out what things you need. Like you might think, oh, my feet are cold, or maybe I want some better gloves, or I need to cover my face, and then just do that. You don't need to make a mountain out of a molehill. You can start small and ride somewhere short, and then go from there.
I agree with Meryl that if you just keep riding as it slowly gets colder and snowier, it's a really much easier transition than trying to start in January. But I will also say if you can afford it, I would go with two studded tires. They have made such a difference. And I know lots of people like only one, but unless you are a very confident rider, I would suggest getting the second.
I would say if you're reticent, don't necessarily feel like you have to like start from right outside of your house and just go no matter what the infrastructure is like. You could go to a place that you know has bike lanes that are better cleared of snow, or you can try winter cycling on a day where the weather isn't so bad, where it's pretty dry conditions, to just kind of get used to the cold and figure out what it's all about without being in the worst conditions. So I guess just kind of being strategic with how you start.
Yeah, I guess I would just stress not thinking about winter cycling as all or nothing. It's perfectly fine to bike on the days when you find it easier and to take the bus or the subway or whatever else if the weather is especially bad. You'll find out that lots of days are quite easy, and it's not like a moral failing if you find it, too cold one day to bike in the winter. And then beyond that, I guess I would say to plan your route and be aware of, at least in my experience in Montreal, like if you like, some of the routes are much better than others in winter. So if you follow your route, maybe walk down it, walk it, or slowly bike it on a day you don't have to actually arrive at work fast. Like if you can make sure that your route is a route that is usually pretty well plowed and everything, then you can be confident of that route and then slowly expand to other destinations as you get more into winter cycling.
Yeah, this was all great advice. I've got a couple of quick things here. One is we've talked a lot about what we can do as individuals, but I think if we really want to get more people cycling, cities need to build more infrastructure. We need to just become more bike friendly in general. That's going to help more people ride. The barrier right now is not really individual stuff. It's not like having the right clothes or the right bike. It's that there's no safe place to ride. So we want more people to ride in winter, especially newbies. We need to have better, safe infrastructure. So if you're going to put your effort anywhere, it's into advocating your city do a better job. And I'd also say tap into your local community. Like the comment section on this chat is amazing. Like there's so much good advice in here. And in Winnipeg, you've got so many good people at the bike shops and at the community bike shops. And I see, I think that's Jamie Hilland in there, and Anders, all these people we've talked about today and everyone on this call. Like there's lots of great advice. So tap into the local community. They're amazing. I don't know if you guys have a coffee outside like lots of cities do, but that's a great place to start as well. It's also nice to feel like you're not the only one out there.